Okay, so in this next video, we're going to talk about how to simplify just specifically the radical when there's a number inside of it. So not an entire radical expression like we did in the last video, but just simply simplifying a radical. And so there's really only one learning objective. That learning objective is just simply to simplify. That's the main thing. However, I will say that in order to know what it means to simplify, you also need to understand a different term that kind of means the same thing, and that is exact value. So that's really two different ways of saying the same learning objective. So what I'd like to do to begin with is show you the difference between an approximate value and an exact value. So I'm grabbing my calculator here. There we go. Let's say I want to do, so we're just going to jump right into an example. An example that finds the difference between exact value and approximate value. Okay, now I'm going to do this with an example that you are familiar with. Okay, you're familiar with, and then we'll look at radicals. So, for example, you're familiar with situation, I'm sorry, where I have 12 over 16. 12 over 16 is a fraction, okay? Now, on my calculator, I could type that fraction in. Remember, to get fractions in my calculator, I could just use the divide bar, and that would be simple. But I just want to remind you that you do have fractions built into your calculator. They're in these menus that say F1, F2, F3. So if I hit alpha F1, there's my fraction. And I'm just going to type in 12 divided by 16. Whoops. 12 over 16. There we go. I'm just going to type that in. So 0.75 is what I get. Now, you know from previous math classes all the way back to elementary school, that's something I could round off. That's approximately the same as 0.8 if I want to round it to the 10th place. I could even round it to the ones place and say it's approximately the same as 1. I could round those things off, but they're not exactly equal. So it's true to say that it is exactly equal to 0.75, but it's only approximately equal to something like 0.8 or even like 1.0. Okay, so those things are not the same. These are exactly equal. This is not exactly equal. And so what we're looking at is as soon as I round off, they're not the same anymore. Okay, now we also know in the case of fractions that there's another way that I can find an exact value, and that is to simplify the fraction. If I simplify 12 over 16, both of these can divide by 4. So if I divide both of those by 4, I get 3 over 4. Now, 12 over 16 and 3 over 4, you know as well as I do, they produce the exact same decimal. So they are exactly equal to each other. There's no difference between them. This is just considered a more simple form. Okay, so here's what we currently have on our paper. We have 12 over 16. This is an exact value, but it's not simplified. We have 3 over 4. This is an exact value and it is simplified. Okay, so I'm going to keep track of which ones they are. So this one is exact, but it's not simplified. This one is exact and it's simplified. Okay, we also had 0.75. That is also exact and simplified. And then we rounded it off to 0.8. That is no longer exact. It is simplified. Okay, so these are our different situations. When you have a question that asks for a simplified or an exact value with radicals, we're looking for this situation right here. We're looking for something that is exact and is simplified. In other words, it has no rounding off and the numbers are as small as possible. Okay, that's what we're looking for. Now there's an extra wrinkle that goes with radicals. You might remember from one of our previous videos this week, it might have just been the last video, I guess I don't remember for sure which one it was in. If there's this theorem in algebra that says if you do a radical and you type in this number, now, and by the way, as a side note, this is a paraphrase of the theorem. This isn't exactly the way the theorem is written, but if I do the square root of some number and I get a decimal, this is an irrational number. And remember, irrationals go forever. So the very fact that this decimal stops means that the calculator has rounded it off. And so therefore, this number on my calculator would not fit into the box of being a simplified exact value because it's been rounded. Okay, so it doesn't matter how many of these numbers I write on my paper, the simple fact is this was rounded by the calculator. Even, and then certainly if I rounded it off to like 3.5, now it's been rounded off by me. But no matter what, either way, it's not exact. Okay, so what that means, if every single time I get a decimal, that decimal is rounded, what that means in the land of radicals, okay, that's an AL. In the land of radicals, when we ask for a simplified exact value, when that's what we're looking for, and remember, in the land of radicals, they could ask for simplified, they could ask for exact, they might say simplified exact. Okay, those things all kind of mean the same thing. If they're looking for that, if that's what you're trying to find, the implication is your answer cannot have a decimal. Your answer cannot have a decimal. All right, so that's the first big takeaway. Because as soon as I round off, it's not exact, and everything that has a radical with decimals has been rounded off. When I'm looking for a simplified exact answer, I cannot have any decimals. All right, so that's really, I guess you could say, an introduction to this learning objective. Bottom line, no decimals. That's the bottom line. Now, that raises the question. If I'm not allowed to have any decimals, then what do I do with something like the square root of 12? Well, at this point, we're going to look at several different examples. The square root of 12 will be the first one we look at, but we're going to look at several different examples in the next video, which is the video that has examples in it. So this is the theory, this is the background. This is just being able to interpret the instructions that you'll be given. In the next video, we'll actually do some examples of how you simplify radicals. All right, thanks for watching this. Be sure to watch the rest of the videos in a minute.